And just before we get through, Courtney has a beautiful list that we would like to have her go through with you. But before we do that, you have a top two on that, what you're really running for. Do you want to talk about the second platform that you are running on?
I mean, it's really single payer. There are. What are the top two? That's funny you should say top two, because one of them is actually the top two primary itself is a huge problem that is also something that's on my list. But as far as my two main planks, it's really single payer and article the first. I think everybody probably in this audience knows what single payer is. If you don't, good time to figure it out. Socialized healthcare. We want people to be able to go to the doctor and.
Right. So we're talking about that, and Courtney's pulling up her list. There's been a lot of discussion on word use, on whether single payer or universal health care. And so there's concern with just using single payer. So I just want to use this as an educational piece. So universal health care is really the name we want to get behind. Apparently in Washington State, there's some talk about a single payer they want to get behind for Medicaid, but that means that they actually want to make the Medicaid private. So we want to watch our use, especially here for single payer, because they want to turn it into a private Medicaid for Washington State, which, as we know, turning something private doesn't necessarily represent the whole of the people.
Yeah, no, I hear you. That literally put the problem back into the situation in another form.
Exactly. So Courtney, are you ready with our list? So go ahead and take that part away.
I am. All right, Tyler. We have a list that we prepared through our Washington Bernie-Kratz Coalition Facebook group, where we asked from amongst our members for suggestions on things that should be put back into the control of the government, so socialized. And we're wondering on this list which ones you agree with or would disagree with and why. So as I go through the list, if you can just say private or socialized, and then if there's a brief explanation to anything that you would disagree with. So prisons.
Oh, yeah, gotta be public.
Okay, schools?
Public. Public and private, that has to be both.
Okay. With that, is that a difference between higher education and primary education, or is that within the K through 12 system as well?
Should be both. Should be, public and private option all throughout.
Okay, when you say private, is that something like parochial schools, or is that also something along the line of charter schools?
I'm just saying that charter schools is too complicated. I'm just saying that you can't mandate there not being private schools. So we need to have a public option all the way throughout, and then let the private sector do whatever they do. It's not the government's job to deal with that.
Okay. Healthcare.
Public. Public.
Postal service.
Public.
Utilities.
Public.
Water.
Public.
Banks.
Ideally public. And I think that, you can't get rid of private either, but definitely needs to be a public option.
Okay. And then public lands.
Yep.
And natural resources.
Yep.
Infrastructure.
Yep. That's actually the whole point of the government.
Mm-hmm. Internet cell service. And you can address
open to it. I've never really thought of it. What would that look like? I would be in favor of a public option on internet and phone communications. Absolutely, I would be.
Okay. Social Security.
Yep, public.
Military military and its associated industrial complex.
Got to be public.
Foster care.
Definitely has to be public. I think. I don't know how you would address the question of private. I think private exists. Again, private sector doing what the private sector does, not the government's job to deal with that, but definitely has to have a public option.
Okay. And then mass transit, as in buses?
Yeah, required. Public.
Ferries?
Yep.
Railways?
Yep.
Airways?
sure if we could pull it off. I mean, we're going to need to take some leaps forward to be able to play at that level. But absolutely, be ideal.
Libraries,
Yeah, for sure.
childcare,
Ideally, yeah, absolutely.
space exploration,
Yeah, I love this conversation. This is great.
scientific funding,
Yeah, definitely.
elections,
Yep. What a concept.
first responders,
Yeah.
social services,
Mm-hmm.
okay, Veterans Administration,
Yeah.
community housing,
Mm-hmm.
and then what are your thoughts on the universal basic income?
Yeah. Again, I mean, I think that would be a level of something to strive for, a level of that to me is uh, would be a highly evolved state of humankind if we could get to that level. And I think that is within our grasp for the first time, perhaps in history. We can get to that point where people don't need to fear for their safety in that basic way, and they can relax and settle in and figure out what their direction is, knowing that they're going to be able to eat and have shelter and have the
And then
basics covered.
good. And then as a possible stepping stone in that direction, would you be interested in supporting a caregiver's basic income in which uh, parents or a parent of young children or the caregiver for elderly parents or a sick family member can receive benefits uh, as a care provider, even if it's within their own home, instead of so if I wanted to stay home with my kids, instead of paying the child care providers system on behalf of my child, allow my family to have that. And then also those years of caregiving can be also applied to Social Security or some new format can be developed. But whatever credit people get for working, those caregiver years are honored.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sounds almost utopic to me. And of course, the big conversation at the end of the day for all these things, literally from top to bottom, is how you're going to pay for it. And we actually are in a position to do that and could move towards that if we just got to kind of put the people back in the driver's seat. So it really comes back to the article, the first question, because how are you going to do that when when our system naturally has the more selfish people rise to the top in every sector? How are you going to implement changes that support the people on the quote unquote bottom? And the only way you're going to do that is through the House of Representatives. So the answer to all those questions is yes. And how are we going to pay for it? There's two ways. We're going to put the people back in the driver's seat, and B, you have to deal with this looming what do they call it, the 500-pound gorilla of the military industrial complex, because where are all those resources going that should really be supporting a mother with twin newborns or an adult who just needs to take care of their ailing parents? Where are all those resources going? I hate to break it to you, but not break it to you, but it's blowing people up, and we don't need to do that anymore. We're the wealthiest and most powerful country the world has ever known, and there is every reason why we can do all those things.
So that leads me to ask next,